Good morning and welcome to another episode of Groovi Tuesday. My name is Paul Church from Clarity Craft here in the UK. I hope everybody's well. We shall give it a few minutes for people to find the room, pull up a chair and get comfy. I wonder who's going to be first into the chat room this morning. Normally we have the lovely Mo is first, normally over on Facebook. So I wonder whether she's going to be first today. It's like a little game I have in my head. I know it's sad. Hey, Glynis, good morning. Glynis is the first person in the room. How are you? How are you and Pete? I hope you're both well. So I hope you're keeping out of trouble. Good morning, Jill. There we go. Everybody's coming in. The lovely Jane is in the room with you this morning. Good morning, Ken and Lynn. If you have any questions, Jane is there to help, and I'm sure some of our other lovely design team members will help you out as well. I'm hoping that the sound is all clear. So there we go, text from Jane, all good. Thank you very much, Jane. There we go. Once I get that all clear, then I know I can carry on waffling until everybody finds a chair and gets comfortable. So hopefully the weather has settled down a little bit wherever you are in the UK or across the world. And the sun's definitely out. It's definitely getting warmer, and but it's still fresh compared to, well, it's still fresh, end of. So yeah, but at least down here the snow and the frost is starting to disappear. So which is lovely. And I heard on the news on the weather the other day that I think it was in northern Scotland somewhere. I think there'd been like -7, and by the middle of the week it's going to be 12. So such a big change in temperature. So there we go. Everybody's coming in. Do we have any first timers in the room? Oops, I've just kicked the bin. Do we have any first timers in the room? Maybe you're tuning in for the first time. Maybe you've recently found Clarity and Clarity TV and the Shack and everything else Clarity related. So if you are, welcome. Where have you been? So this week we're going to continue with our project we've been working on. Good morning, Josie. Lovely to have your company as always. And we've been working on a pair of plates that the lovely Jazz has designed. And she designed them towards the end of last year. And they're a perfect opportunity for learning various different skills. And if you're new to Groovi, or maybe you've been doing it for many, many years, but you want to sort of maybe perfect something, or you're not sure. So the plates that Jazz has very kindly designed, I'm going to bring them in on the overhead. So I'm going to reach up and stretch now. So these are two A4 plates. No, actually, not too bad, is it? Let's swap them around so they're in the right position. So you can see here, each of them have 6 square panels, which just happen to fit perfectly within our Pergamano coasters. And you've got one that's called Rosie, and it's got the rose and some lovely sort of designs on there that can be used throughout the year. And then the other one is Festive. So you've got poinsettias, you've got your mistletoe, you've got your bells, your bauble, star and candles. But many of these can be used throughout the year because each of them have their own unique border or frame. So if you did take advantage and you bought these towards the end of last year, then you could take the frame from this particular one and maybe put the rose in the center, or the heart. You have a lovely square frame here with dots on the inside. I really like this one. Just a series of lines on there. This one also reminds me of like a bird box or a bird house or a little kennel. You can really sort of start to play with the plates and combining both of them. So we've been working on the rose one, and we've been looking at this piece here, and I took my inspiration from a piece of artwork created by Josie Davidson. And I thought, as an introduction to this plate, then what we would do is we'd just take one of the 6 different designs and put it through their paces. Now I'm going to move my phone out the way because I reckon I need to come in on this camera over here. So if I show this piece of artwork here, okay, as you can see what Josie's done, she's taken that rose and then the background has been infilled with our Pergamano, our Groovi, not Pergamano, our Groovi grids. Now, our grids are dual purpose. You can use them for perforating and you can also use them for embossing. And Jazz had a lovely lady on the telephone yesterday, and she thought she'd been sent the wrong product because she wanted to do the embossing rather than the perforating. So hopefully that lovely lady has tuned in today and will explain exactly how these grids work. Okay. Now, also at the same time as these plates being launched, we then had this fantastic guide to grid work written by Linda Williams. And many of our friends may be familiar with the name Linda Williams, Pergamano Master Tutor, only 2 in the world. And what she did, it was the tip of the iceberg on what you can do with these 2 grids, piercing or embossing. And this guide, Linda takes us through step by step how to perforate, how to use it as an embossing. You've got the key. And then what she's done is she's created some lovely patterns for us to follow. So this is a real sort of a guide and an introduction just to working with the basic grids. Okay. So if I share with you a couple of pieces. So if I bring in, here we go, this is the rose. This has been cut out using our Pico Circle dies. Okay, but there you go, you could do it in a square, you could just take the frame, you could use the Pico squares to do it, but I know Josie used a circle because it had that circular frame on it. Then if we then introduce the rose with that pattern in the background, let's bring that one in there. So the plate, exactly how it comes in relation to the design in the middle. And this could be swapped out. When you look at this frame, you could put anything in there. Okay. However, we know with Groovi that you don't have to trace out all the different elements. So if you miss out every other line, it now looks completely different, doesn't it? Okay. And then using those basic grids, let me just bring that to one side, you can then do, hang on, can't pick it up, you can then do some perforating and embossing in every other one. So if I bring this in on the camera just here to show you, there we go. So all of a sudden it changes the complete look of the design. Okay. I really love, this was a piece that Barb created. If I can get it right, there we go, get it, so it's in the upright position. But I really love that effect of the sort of the perforating and the embossing combined. However, you could take the whole piece and just perforate. Oh, there we go, that one like so. So you can see there you've got those perforations, and this has been done on the diagonal grid. Maybe you're not ready to do your perforating yet, so then maybe you want to do the embossed dots. Now, I love this effect. It sort of adds colour without adding colour, but it creates a lovely background. And then if we want to take it that one step further, we can look at a pattern that Linda has provided in the book and use that, hang on, I'll get it right in a minute, use that to infill and it gives it another look. And you'll notice there, can you see how I've perforated in between as well? I quite like that pattern in the background. That's using the diagonal grid as well. And then the one needle bold to perforate in the center. They remind me like little flowers. So there's so many different choices you have, especially when you're combining these plates, or maybe plates that you've already got in your collection with those basic grids, whether you go for the A5 squares or the mini grids as an introduction. Because the way in which Jazz has designed these plates is that if I take one of the grids, where have they gone? I was working on it earlier because I made a bit of a boo-boo this morning. I was trying to get ahead a little bit and prep, and I went wrong. But you'll see here, if I overlay that on top, it's exactly the same size as those square panels. Okay, and it's also exactly the same size for our Pergamano coasters. So for many of you that are now part of our new Facebook group, which is the Mini Makes and ATCs, then this fits beautifully on the inside. Now, when we come to look at the coasters, don't forget tomorrow evening, Wednesday evening, Barb is doing a free craft along. And this is where Barb will show you how to construct this lovely coaster that she created for her mum many, many moons ago. Look at that. And she pico cut in between all those little areas. There we go. Okay. And it fits beautifully inside our coasters. So don't forget, that's tomorrow evening, live wherever you're finding us today on the Clarity Facebook or YouTube page. It's going to be the same place. There's already a little, the video is ready to go, so to speak, the live. So you can click like and subscribe and you'll be notified when it goes live. On our website, there is also a downloadable ingredients list. So if you want to craft along live with Barb on Wednesday, you can download this and tick your little box to make sure that you have everything. Oh dear, tongue-tied this morning. But this will be a sort of like a real sort of like introduction to what is coming up on Friday. So I know many of you will be tuning into that on Wednesday, and it'll be a fantastic evening. It really, really will. So yeah, so we've got lots going on at Clarity Towers this week. But I thought what we'll do now is we'll continue with the project that we've been working on. And I think we've got many friends in the room already. So it's just approaching 10:15 here in the UK. I've missed a lot of the chat going on as I was sharing everything with you. Okay, are we ready? Has anybody finished their piece? Did you do your homework from last week? I did my homework this morning and I made a boo-boo, so I had to start again. But it doesn't matter. The boo-boo one I've got, I can use that one to practice on. So this is where we're headed. I'm going to zoom in now. Coming nice. Ooh. Let me just stretch up and do my groovy yoga. And there we go. I'm going to come in like so. So this is taking the design from Jazz's plate, exactly how it comes. And we've used those little mini grids to emboss the dots in the background. Okay. Now, as I've zoomed in really, really close, I can see that I've missed a couple of areas just here. Okay, you can, it right at the top, it really stands out, doesn't it? So let me show you how we can correct this. And I'm going to show you the difference between the embossing and the piercing. And I'll do that on my practice piece. Let me bring in my piece that I made a boo-boo on. Can you see where I made my mistake? I didn't reposition it on the grid correctly, and therefore it went a little bit wonky. So not too bad. but I've got this one here. So I'm going to bring the plate mate in from the starter kit because we're working with the mini grids. And I've got the adapter plate on the inside. And I'm going to pop in the diagonal grid. Okay. And I'm going to do it, I can do it, let's do it this way. So I always remember that I've got my Groovi in the top right hand corner. And the reason being is because although it's in a straight line this way, it's diagonal going this way. Okay, it's been offset. So I'm going to put my goggles on so I can see exactly what I'm doing. And then what I'm going to do is relocate that back into the grid. Okay, and as I said earlier, this fits perfectly within that square frame that Jazz has created. So I'm going to take my Groovi tabs and attach my parchment. And I've got loads of them on my Groovi guard so I don't lose them. Okay, just like so. Now, when we made a start on doing the embossing, so I'm working on the back of my parchment, and I'm going to use the number 2 tool from the Groovi starter kit. It has a little ball on the end. Okay. Now, when it comes to areas that are quite close to the line, what you don't want to do is emboss onto that line. So all I'm going to do, there's one, I can definitely get a whole dot in that area there. And I can definitely get one there. Now, when it comes to these areas here, what I'm going to do, how do I explain this? Rather than apply complete pressure when I press into the dot, I'm only applying pressure to the back of the dot, if that makes sense. So if I just touch it very, very lightly, like so, okay, and all of a sudden what it does is it fills in that space. Now, if I go in too heavy and I think, oh, I've distorted the line, then all you need to do is reposition your line art back onto your Groovi plate and just reintroduce that solid outer line. But now you can see how I've infilled that little area. And I'm going to do exactly the same there. And whilst it's attached, I can have a look to see if there's any other areas, like definitely down here. See how there's a little bit of a gap. So I'm going to come round, I'll turn it round like so. And then I'm just touching at the back of the dot. Okay. And I can do another one there and another one there. Maybe another one there. And another one there. So that's how I find it's easier to do the main areas first and then just go back in and do the little bits you're unsure of. And also it's knowing when to stop. But as I say, I'm going to show you on my practice piece. I reckon I'm sort of happy with that. Sometimes you've got to stop. Okay, I reckon, yeah, I'm going to stop on that one there, like so. So this is my rose completed to this point. Now, the one that I made a booba on that I'm going to use now to practice and show you. So if I line this back up, like so, and say when I come to do the dot along here, I go onto that white line. And I think, oh no, goodness me, I've made a mistake. Okay, so let's just do a couple more lines just so you can see. And let's purposely go into the line art of the rose. Now, if I turn it over and I bring it up to the camera, you can definitely see that that line has a dot on it, doesn't it? So what I'm going to do now is bring in the original plate that I traced my line art from. So this is the plate from Jazz. Okay, that goes in like so, and it slots back in perfectly. Now I can take my number 1 tool and I can go back in and reintroduce that crisp white line, and all of a sudden that dot has disappeared. And this was something that I picked up from Barb back in the day when we first started doing Groovi, because if you're working with an irregular shape like we are here, we've got the scallop and you've also got the rose petals, sometimes you get carried away when you're embossing the dots, and then you hit it and you think, oh no, I've made a mistake. But you can go back in and reintroduce the line art. Okay, does that make sense? I think I've explained it. It makes sense to me in my head. Hopefully it's made sense to some of you at home, especially when you're filling in with that background. Now, the only thing you can't correct is if you're perforating, because once you've made that hole, you've made the hole. But in the embossing element, you can definitely go back and reintroduce the line art. And it came to me this morning when I was working, I'm thinking, because I did touch the line, and then I remembered, say, this tip that Barb, it was back in the day, it really, really was, in the early days of Groovi, and we were working and we didn't know what the rules are. I mean, the rules, what are rules? And we were learning to work with the grids and everything else. And you spend all that time creating the background, especially with this technique, because I don't even think we'd got to the stage of doing the perforating with the grids, even though they're called piercing grids. I don't think we'd got to that stage yet of sort of the confidence of perforating and snipping and everything else. But they were just lovely infills for your plates. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to stick with my practice piece, like so. The embossing was done on the back. Okay. So Sally says, I found that I can work with the acrylic grids better than the old metal grids. Thank you, Paul. You're welcome. I know this was a point that was raised during last week's session. And for me, I tried the metal grids when we took over Pergamano, and the acrylic grids are definitely, for me personally, are a lot better. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're now going to look at the perforating. Okay, I'm just going to grab my superphone. So I'm going to use my, ouch, it says this chair. So I'm going to introduce my superphone. I'm going to work with the black superphone because I'm not using the light panel. Okay, and for example, I'm still using the diagonal grid, but this time we're now going to turn to the front of our artwork. So if I wanted to perforate a straight line across the top on the outer part, maybe to do my picot cutting, then actually I'm going to swap to the square one, not square one, the straight one. So Josie prefers the acrylic grids as well, and so does the lovely Jane, and no doubt lovely Glynis does as well. Okay, there we go, that's better. So you can see now, because I've gone to the straight one, I could have come down one on the diagonal because it would have worked. Okay, and all I'm going to do now, working from the front, I'm lining up the straight edge with one row of holes visible. Okay, like so. I'm going to attach my parchment so it's nice and secure. I've got my Groovi guard to lean on, and help me concentrate on that area. And now I'm going to grab my 1 needle bold, because the grids have been designed to work with the 1 needle bold. Okay, so Glynis says it's kinder on the hands as well. There we go. So all we're going to do now is going to hold the tool upright and perforate. So if I come in on this camera, let's have a look where we're going. Do you have to go all the way in? Out of habit, I do. So this is what we call deep perforating. And Barb's really going to have a look at the perforating on Wednesday evening. And she'll be using the 2 needle bold or the 2 needle fine tool. But I know when many of our friends come to our Clarity Open days and Glynis runs the snip clinic, exactly what Glynis will get you to do, go along a straight line to practice your picot cutting. Okay, so now I've got a perfectly straight line of perforations. However, maybe I want to infill the design in there. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to flip back to my diagonal grid, like so. Still working on the front. And I'm going to position that exactly like so. There we go. Groovi Guard really is sort of key when you're doing sort of perforating, because it has all these little size windows. It's perfect for concentrating and holding the parchment, and as what Barb calls it, blousing, when you withdraw the 1 needle tool from pulling up the parchment. So, and then you just go in and you perforate just like so. And I know when Josie's doing her perforating, it's like a little sewing machine going. But this is really nice to get a lovely different look to your artwork as well. Now where we're going, there we go. You see? Okay, so that's just explaining the multiple use of those grids. So not only can you perforate from how they were originally designed, but also for embossing as well. Okay, so what I want to do now is introduce colour to my rose, because don't forget, this year is the year of clarity. Year of clarity? Year of colour at Clarity. So I'm going to pop everything to one side. I'm going to go back to my original piece of artwork, and I'm going to be using the pergolina pencils. Now, if you're new to Groovi, new to parchment, and you're new to colouring in, maybe you're ready to take that next step on your colouring in. Then for me, the pergolinas are a great way of learning, because if you make a mistake, you can rub it all out and start again. Okay, right, goggles on. So I've chosen 3 different colours for my rose, and I'm using the Pergolina B pencils, and Barb's been using these in the shack for colouring in those lovely owls, and also the floral alphabet posters as well. So I've chosen B8, B9 and B11. What's the difference between the B and the A? The B are blendable, they're a wax-based pencil, just like the polychromos. The A ones, which have black writing on, are aqua, watercolour pencils. Okay, so what I'm going to do first, if you were tuning in yesterday to Clarity TV during the 2 o'clock show, you would have seen Barb using these with the stamped version of the floral wall stamps. And I'm going to be using the Groovi version this afternoon, and I'll be joined by the lovely Jazz. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to put like an undercoat down. I'm working on the back of the yellow. Okay, And in a minute, I'm going to hold this up and show you how amazing my colouring looks. Not. Okay, so yellow is going to be my base, my sort of undercoat. Okay. Really, I could have done, no, I can't, it's too big. I've been working on my PTC swap over on the Mini Makes and ATC Facebook page. Jane has kindly set me up with a swap partner, and I've been working on my little PTC this morning so I can send it out to my swap partner. So who else is taking part with the ATC or PTC swap? There's so many members in that group now, isn't there? And it's all about offering inspiration, get your mojo started, all about the mini makes, like so. There we go. And I'm not applying pressure, I'm just very lightly, I'm not tickling the parchment this time. There is a little bit of pressure because obviously I've got to get the pigment out of the pencil onto my rose. Okay, now if I hold this up, I'm going to bring a white piece of paper in so you can see how beautiful that looks. Not. Okay, so this is where the magic of the Dorso oil comes in. So the Dorso oil is a Pergamano product, which is a product owned by Clarity. And it works beautifully not only on parchment, but also on cards as well. I'm going to bring in one of my spot-on sponges to become my applicator. Okay, what's the difference? I've got a message from Jane, from Judith. What's the difference between Perga and normal pencils? Okay, so in the Pergaliner pencils, there's two different types of pencils. You've got the B ones, which have the white writing on, and they're a wax-based pencil, so like Faber-Castell Polychromos. Okay, they've got that lovely waxy, oily consistency to them, which work beautifully not only on parchment, but also on card, and allows you to blend with a medium, and we're going to be using the Dorso oil. The A pencils are the aqua pencils, so they're a watercolor pencil, which you can use dry onto your parchment, but then there's also a technique, and the instructions are on the back of it. Let me see, where's that box of pencils? Hang on, have a look at this dodgy rose whilst I go and grab a box of Pergaliner pencils. Okay, right. Okay. So these are our Pergaliner pencils. You get 20 of the B pencils and, no, 16 of the B pencils and 20 of the aqua pencils. And on the back, it's coming in on the overhead, there's the dry technique in all the various different languages. And then there's the wet technique. So there's some great guides on instructions on how to apply the color on the back. Okay. And I'm sure there's probably a couple of YouTube tutorials using those techniques, or blogs. I'm guessing there's probably some blogs over on the Clarity Matters blog. Okay. So what we're going to do now is, in order to blend this, we need a tool. So I'm going to bring in my blending pen. So this was a product that we launched since we owned Pergamano, because back in the day we used to use paper stumps, and the company that used to manufacture those discontinued them. So Barb and Dave, as usual, heads come together, I think a little bit of Linda, some of the design team, and all of a sudden the Pergamano blending pen came into force, and they absolutely fly. Do you need more than one? That's like saying, how many brushes do you need? You definitely need more than one box of brushes. And if you're working with multiple colors, like with your blending, then sometimes it's really useful to have several blending pens on the go to save you keep changing the nibs. So where do you get the nibs from? So the nibs, I've got mine in my little storage container. Okay, and it comes with 3 nibs, and you can also get refill nibs because obviously they don't last forever. They slot into your blending pen, and now it sits very comfortably within your hand. Okay, so that, you know, like the stamp pens, how popular they've been is because they sit so comfortably within your hand. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take some of our Dorso oil and put it on my spot-on sponge. Okay, let's just have a slurp of coffee. I love the smell of the Dorso oil. Okay. And all we're going to do is literally blink and you will miss it. I've just tapped it into the oil on the spot-on sponge, and I know from experience that there's already too much oil on there. So if I go over here, you can see how much oil is there. Now, if you have too much oil, then what it does, it acts as an eraser and can lift away the colour. So to start off with, I'm going to bring in my Groovi guard to concentrate on that area. You can blot it on a clean piece of your spot-on sponge, and that will absorb some of it. And what I'm going to do now, in a tickling motion, I'm not applying pressure to the nib, I'm just working in a circular motion to blend the pigment. Okay, and what it does, it brightens the colour. We're still working on that. It doesn't matter if I'm going over the white lines. Okay. And what will happen, as the Dorso oil evaporates, you'll know when you need to reload your nib, because all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but you'll find that the pigment on the parchment stops moving. Question from Jackie, not paying attention. Jackie, I'm doing a yellow rose. It's because I'm working on a black mat. Now, another top tip that I got from the lovely Tina Cox is if you're colouring in, a light panel can make a big difference. Okay, so let me bring a white piece of paper in underneath that, and you can see all of a sudden where I have blended the pigment. Okay, now when I first started colouring in on parchment, I thought in order to get the intensity of the colour, then what I had to do was apply pressure with the pencil, because you would think the more pencil you put on, the more colour. But what that was doing, all it was, especially when you're working with the B pencils, it seals the colour and it doesn't allow you to blend easily. But you don't need much of the pencil, as you can see from that piece there, because all I've done is very lightly scribbled on, and then taking the Dorso oil, it has now spread that colour out and made it more vibrant. Okay, so we're going to work our way round, and as I say, don't forget, this is just the base coat of our rose. Okay, and you'll notice that I'm treating each petal individually. Okay, so all we're going to do, and I can feel now that the Dorso oil is starting to dry up on the nib or evaporate, but I reckon I've got a little bit more I can do before you go back in. Now, The other thing to remember is, obviously, when I dipped it in to the underneath of this nib, it has seeped through. So if I turn my pen, it would have seeped through. So I've got two sides to the nib where the oil is. Okay. I really enjoy this process of sort of watching the magic happen as you blend in the pigment of the pencil. Okay. So I reckon it's definitely starting. Oh, I don't know. We're going to build up various different layers on this rose with different colours. So even if it's not completely blended to start with, it will be completely blended by the time we finish. But I am going to come back in with a little bit more dorsal. You can see, look, I'm just blotting now on the spot on sponge. And in a way, what you've done is that you've created not a felt tip pen, but the nib, because it's got that fine point to it, has become like a pen. Okay. And you can go back, and as long as you don't put too much pressure on when you're blending, so when you're tickling your parchment with the blending nib, then they'll last quite a while. So I really love. Now, what happens if I go over the line? See, this is for me where the safety net comes in with my colouring, because I can take an eraser pencil and remove the colour. So say, for example, I got halfway around this rose and I thought, you know what, I don't want a yellow rose, I want to do a pink rose, or I want to do a red rose. Then I can take my eraser pencil and remove all of the colour and start again. Okay, now we do a colouring essentials kit, which contains your dorsal oil, some spot on sponges, some more refill nibs, a double-ended eraser pencil, and your two mix mats, one for oil and one for water. Okay. And it's a great accompaniment to colouring in, not only on parchment, but also in your card and paper as well. A little bit more oil, like so. Okay. A little bit too much. I didn't blot it. And you'll note it as you get more comfortable with your colouring in and the application of the oil. If it's a little bit too, if you've got too much oil on your nib, it moves the pencil around too much. So just let it rest, come back and just blot onto your sponge, and then start to work in a different area. Okay. I mean, if you want to keep it very simple and just go for a single colour rose, then you can do that. Maybe trace one out and practice on it first. I mean, that's what I used to do back. I mean, sometimes I still do. If I'm not sure about my colours, then I'll trace out the image I want to colour in, and I'll use that as a test piece. See, and it doesn't take. See, this plate is perfect for the mini makes. Okay. So we're nearly finished blending our base, and I say always, 99.9% of the time, I apply the colour to the back of my work. So here we go. Nearly there. And it's all about enjoying the process. Is there a skill set? I wouldn't say what I'm doing is skillful. It's just the way that I find works for me. Okay. And you can go back on. So for example, although this is completely dry, it is still moist. The oil hasn't completely evaporated yet. So what that means is I could go back in with the yellow again to intensify the colour, and it will still move, and I could possibly get away with using a dry nib with no oil on to blend and move the colour around. Okay, now it's a little bit patchy, but I mean, I can see it here because I'm up really, really close, but let me bring in that white piece of paper. Okay, now the white on the white doesn't look very good, but you can see, if I turn this over to the front now, I've got that lovely, vibrant yellow. Okay, so maybe that's where you want to head. But I can see under my eye with my glasses that it is, hang on, a little bit patchy. Okay, just over here, for example, and here, because as I've been doing the blending, the oil has moved the pigment around. So if I take, for example, the yellow again, and I'm just going to do it on one of the petals, and you'll feel a difference when you now go on top of where the oil has been applied. Okay, so I'm still going on very, very lightly. I'm not applying the pressure. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go for a dry nib. So let's see if this will do the job. Oh. See, these are great for keeping, look, you used colours in there so you can go back and use them again. So we have those on the website. Top tip, when you've finished, remove your blending nib, because if you've got too much oil in there, it can seep down into the barrel of the shaft of the nib, and it can expand, and it can be a little bit of a struggle. Okay, so let's go for a dry nib. Groovy guard over the top, and let's see what happens now. Okay, so I'm still not getting a completely smooth consistency, so maybe I need to go back to the one that's got a little bit of oil on it. Let's pick up a tiny little amount there, and then we'll go in like so. Okay, and that's definitely making a difference to the intensity of the colour. Now you can use the percoliner pencils, the B pencils, with your Dorso oil, but you can also use your Dorso crayons to colour as well, and that's where the mix mats really do sort of come into play. So if I bring this in now, can you see how this petal here is a lot more intense than, say, this one down here? Okay, I can see Ken's up to his old tricks. I see Facebook is allowing him to behave today. Do you know the way to Amaryllis? Ken. So because I want to brighten up this one, because I can definitely see, and this is really where the light panel comes into play as well, because also it tells you how far away from the edge you are, especially on the there. Top tip from Glynis. Glynis often polishes the coloured work with soft tissue when she's done. Oh, right, okay, oh, that's good to know. And does that sort of, not I wouldn't say it buffs it up, but does that help with sort of keeping it nice and sealed? Not sealed, because it's already sealed, because one, it's going to be on the back. What difference does that make, Glynis? I'm just talking rubbish. You tell me what the difference of using the tissue to buff it makes. And is that on the back or is that on the front? Let's see what Glynis has to say. Okay, so now let's go back in where I've reapplied the pencil. Need a little bit more oil. There we go. I really do love this technique, and this can also be done on card as well. It makes it really smooth. Okay. Oh dear. Right. Okay. So now let's bring in a piece of artwork that Josie has created, if I can find it. I've got everything. Here it is. Okay. So let's bring this in from Josie. So you can see Josie's got that lovely sort of purple tinge to her rose, which has been coordinated with the companion papers behind there as well. And I'm going to go for, I always love that lovely look of that red and that orange colour rose. I've got one in my garden. So what I'm going to do now the yellow is a lovely sort of base colour, as we said earlier. Red is really high in pigment and it can overpower your design. So what I'm going to do is just very lightly just put, again, I'm tickling just along that edge of the bottom of this petal. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is just draw that red into the yellow. Okay, so because I've done all my yellow work, do I stick with my yellow nib or do I put that in the box and go for another one? Let's go for another one because I can. So there we go. Goodness me, where does the time go? It absolutely flies on Groovi Tuesday. So what else have I got to tell you? Oh yes, Triple Point Tuesday. Sorry, I got a bit excited there. I surprised myself. Triple Point Tuesday. So if you buy anything on the Clarity website today, you will get triple points on anything that you buy. It runs until midnight tonight. Now, there are a few exclusions: club subscriptions, open day tickets, summer retreats, workshops. They aren't included in that triple points. But anything else that you pop in your basket over the course of today, so if you've already made a purchase earlier today, then that will automatically qualify for the triple points. You've got up until midnight tonight to take advantage of that offer. And what it means is that when you get to, I think it's 300 points in your points bank for the point scheme, you can then take £5 off of your next order. And you build it up and build it up until you're ready to use it. So today may be a perfect opportunity. Maybe you've been sitting on the fence and thinking, oh, I want to get those, or I'll wait and blah, blah, blah sort of thing. But Triple Points Tuesday is definitely a way to build up your loyalty points bank account, so to speak. So yeah, so that runs until midnight this evening. Okay, so why have I got green on there? Did I take one out of the wrong box? Okay, put that one in there. Grab another one. Right, let's have a look. Back with a new nib. Now I'm going to take a little bit of the oil and I just want to test it to see how much I've picked up. Okay, so you can see there. Oh, there we go. You can see that just by there's so much oil still on this spot on sponge. So Groovi Guard, and then all I'm going to do is I've got too much oil on it. Let me show you this. Let me bring in this up here. There's too much oil on that nib, so you can see how it's taking the colour away completely. Okay, so if you see it's doing that, then stop, and then just remove some more of the oil. Go into a different area. There's still too much. Still too much. But I'm not worried, I can go back in. And what I'm doing is I'm going up and down as I move along that line. Okay. And at the moment it looks, it really, really does. It does to me anyway. Okay. So what I've done, I've now broken down the pigment of that red. Okay, I'll turn it over. Let's bring some white. That looks naff. It really, really does. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to a dry nib, like so. This is why maybe you want to stock up on your blending nib, especially with it being year of the colour. Not only, and you're colouring in the shack on Thursday evening. So now I'm going to work in a circular motion, and I'm going over both the red and the yellow. Okay. So now I'm breaking it down a little bit further. And it still looks a little bit odd, okay, because you can, there's definitely a clear definition between the yellow and the red. Okay, just like so. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take some orange and I'm going to go over the red and the yellow, like so. Okay, so I'm building up my layers of colour, still only applying light pressure with the pencil. So this is the B9. I'm going to go back in, and now I'm going to start to, I'm working in larger swirly motions. Swirly motions, is that the right word? So I'm now bringing all three colours together, like so. Okay. And if you think that it's still not moving it enough, then you can, if you're going to reload at this point, pick up the oil and dab into the sponge. Okay. So let's have a look now. Definitely making a difference. Now this one petal is going to look really odd to start with. So it's all about working with one petal at a time. Rather than do all of it, I've put my base layer down across the whole of the rose to get me started and put my sort of my undercoat down. And now I'm just going to concentrate on one petal at a time. Okay. And I'm just working in a circular motion just to bring all those lovely colours together. Okay. And it's still not finished because what we're going to do next week, we're going to come back to this petal and we're going to put yellow on again. Okay, so if I turn this over now, you can see how it's starting to take shape. I'm still not happy with the strict contrast between the red and the yellow, but it's all about just building it up into the layers. Okay, but on the back, let's have a come back. So if I bring this on here, look, can you see how it's starting to change colour? But I definitely need to blend out a little bit more. Okay, so next week we're going to continue with this same petal and see what happens after in a week's time. I mean, I'm not saying you should leave it for a week before you start to build up your layers, but I'm conscious of time because it's 11 o'clock already. And for me, this is sort of, it's one of those, it is petal by petal that you build up. And it's not to be rushed. If you want, it's the same with white work. If you want that beautiful white work effect, then it's something that you leave and you let it build up over a period of time. And I've had to learn that, being Mr. Impatient, that sometimes if you want something to look beautiful, you have to give it time. So we'll leave it there for today. We'll come back next Tuesday and we're going to continue on with the colouring of this lovely rose. And don't forget, on that plate from Jazz, you've got the lilies, you've got smaller roses. What else have you got on there? Where's it gone? You've got roses. Yeah, look at some of your plates, some of the Jane Nesterenko plates as well that you may have in your collection. Barb's Floral Alphabet, you could do that with the bijou one, the larger ones. They're beautiful plates to learn the colouring on. And so yes, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to go and change my shirt into my normal clothes. Then I'm going to carry on with my PTC so that I can get that out in the post today. Then I'm going to prep for 2 o'clock today. I'll be joined by the lovely Jazz, and we'll be looking at Barbara's Floral Walls Groovi plate collection. If you tuned in yesterday, you would have seen the stamp version. And I've got a piece of artwork that Barb created, and I'm going to show you how that was created. So very similar to what Barb was doing yesterday with that log frame with the stamps and the masks, I'm going to show you how easy it is to achieve in Groovi. So thank you as always for your company. Thank you to lovely Jane and the design team for helping out and for keeping me company in there. And hopefully I'll see you all at 2 o'clock today.